So mic check, is lapel working, hopefully? I hate podiums, so I'm not gonna stand behind it. What a great crowd. I severely underestimated the desire of people to have an alcoholic beverage and what they'd be willing to sit through in order to obtain their goals in life. So I appreciate everyone being here. Obviously, thank the Devon folks for being here as well. Good reminder that bonus season is right around the corner. Let me start off with a disclaimer, right? Every good oil field presentation starts off with a disclaimer about, hold on, let me turn this off before we get feedback. Market announcements, et cetera. This isn't that. This is not a TED Talk. That's my disclaimer number one. Those guys are phenomenal. There's nothing I can tell you that is going to be better than them. They can't drill a hole in the ground, but they're pretty good at leadership conversations. Number two is most of what I'll say, I stole. I've completely plagiarized. I don't know if this mic is still on. I can hear echo. From former leaders, podcasts, books, et cetera. Very little of this is my own knowledge. Actually, third disclaimer, since the Devon people are here, is I know some of these I don't actually do very well, but I'm knowledgeable about that and I'm working on it. So I think I can still put it in here. So when Jared talked to me about coming and doing this, I was excited. I've been looking for a way to get back involved with AADE, and I've pretty much regretted that every day since. And it's not because I don't like speaking in front of people, I actually do. I love to talk about rig strategy or a graph or mechanical component that I can describe to you. But leadership scares the crap out of me, right? Because how do you measure it? How do you know if you're getting better? How do I know if I change something, did I improve over time or did it get worse over time? What are the units that you use, right? It's such kind of a gray idea for me as an engineer, and to get up and talk about leadership is really scary. That's the self-awareness piece, right? It makes you question, am I really a good leader? Because I'm thinking about all these things and do I do all of them? With any good SPE, AADE, et cetera type paper or presentation, if you don't have a novel concept to explain, you do a case study, right? So this is my case history of things that I've screwed up over time and how I try to do better now. So first off, I think it's important to kind of quantify my version of management versus leadership, right? This is one of my favorite interview questions to ask people because it typically trips them up just like it would me. To me, management is allocating a very scarce resource to get something done, right? And often that is neglecting other opportunities to utilize that resource. So it's very tactical in nature. It's organizational planning, it's problem solving, task targeting, coordinating, oftentimes not just within the drilling group, but maybe the drilling completions group, maybe the reservoir group, et cetera. Leadership is really like how it gets done, right? It's aligning people to a shared vision and mission. It's motivating, it's mentoring, risk-taking support. I feel like that's one of the key pieces to leadership. Empathy, honestly, I'm not very good at it. I'm working on it. It's communicating, it's being a change initiator. But more than anything, to me, leadership is building a culture. It's building a culture where all of these things exist and they build upon themselves so that you can kind of step out of it and just be like, okay, that's the foundation, it's all working, now let's go build some pillars upon that foundation. So, leadership, I'm going to take each one of these, kind of talk about some of the things that I struggled with in the past. And to me, the first battle is communication, right? So what engineers think about their leader is, I can do their job better than they can. And all of a sudden the Devon people got really, really anxious and nervous, right? No, I think that that's true. I definitely felt that way. I felt that way in the past. But I think the reason is also interesting. I think the reason is maybe we're managing instead of leading, right? Maybe it's an old school mentality of I only really need you from the neck down. I'm going to tell you what I need you to get done, and I'm going to skip over why. I'm just going to tell you here are the main bullet points of things I need to get done. Maybe it's because the engineer or whoever the person is doesn't maybe have an appreciation for the amount of gray area that we deal with as leaders, right? It's black and white decisions are easy. Everybody can see them, everybody kind of understands, but there's a lot of gray area decisions that we make all the time, and to really understand it, you really need to give context and detail. Well, frequently we don't give context and detail. And why is that? Well, maybe we feel like we can't. I'm going to get to an example here in a second, but one of the key things that I think is important is start with the why and then the what. In years past, I've been around where all you got was the what. You didn't get the why. Or maybe you got the what and it wrecked your world so much that you didn't really think and listen to the why. Or maybe you only got part of the why. But if you start with the why and fully explain what that is, Then you can move to the what, and you get people's buy-in. And then, I expect professionalism because I'm sharing a lot of detail. My boss is here, so I'm not going to expand on this too much, but within my staff meeting, I tell my guys absolutely everything that I can about what's going on in the asset. Way more than I'm probably supposed to, but I expect professionalism that they're going to handle themselves in a proper way. But providing that context and that detail into why changes are happening builds trust, right? The drill schedule example is this. It wasn't many years ago where if we had a rig that we were going to drop in the future, it was like hush hush. You don't tell anyone, no one says a word, you keep it top secret. You don't tell anyone until you're 30 days out, right? Because that's whenever the 30-day clause kicks in. We've got plans for next year that I'm already forecasting to the guys. Well, why is that? Well, first off, I think we have partners that we're working with that understand and can appreciate the fact that we're giving them some forecast into what's going to happen. They can start trying to evaluate options for rigs that we may drop. The why and then the what, and talking with the engineers, the why is we are drilling much more efficiently than we were last year, and we don't want to increase our budget. We want to execute the same amount of footage for the same budget, and we can do it with one less rig, right? So it just takes everybody's anxiety down a little bit. And letting them know ahead of time, hey, this may be coming in February, but let's talk about what are the goalposts, what changes could happen between now and then, and what are we looking for in signs in the market to help us understand whether that decision is going to be made or not. It just brings everybody into the conversation. So what does your leader think if you're an engineer? I can do that job better than he can. I've already done it, right? How many times we heard, man, back in my day, I covered 4 rigs. We were dealing with losses, gas, stuck pipe, but every hole was a record, and I don't know what y'all are complaining about, right? Well, part of that is success started typically with good engineering, right? So it's a different job, though, from when it was when I was there, right? These are things that I'm learning, right? 4 rigs versus 1 rig is not the same job. The data streams that an engineer has today compared to what it was when I was an engineer, totally different. How much interaction that they have with all of the service providers and understanding all these different pieces and how they fit together. The days on well, obviously they're significantly faster. The complexity of every well, the batch drilling that we do, the rig capability, the pace of work. It's just a different job than it was whenever I had 4 rigs and they have 1 or 2, right? But one of the key things that I find is one of the pitfalls you can fall into is as you become a supervisor, you now feel like you're the super engineer instead of the supervisor, right? It's 2 different jobs. The engineers don't need a super engineer helping out, right? Basically micromanaging and doing all the work. They need a supervisor. That was the trap I fell into whenever I first became a supervisor. And when I talk about what engineers think about their leader and what leaders think about their engineer, understand that when I reference that, I reference we are all leaders. If you work in the oil field, you are a leader. If you are the new hired foreman, guess what? In 2 weeks, there will be another new hired foreman, and now you're the leader to him, right? There is somebody in the chain that you are being a leader to. Next, building the feedback skill, right? I think this is critically important. What I want for all new leaders is to have a problem employee early in their career. A lot of people say, well, why in the world would you want that? Well, to me, tough conversations do not come easy. They are hard. The sooner we get that under our belt, the better. The sooner you understand that quick feedback is important and you can get through this anxiety, the better. If you delay it and you avoid it, like I may have done in the past, before long it becomes a real issue. Because I promise you, if there's a problem employee, everyone that works around you knows it. And everyone also is looking to see how are you going to handle that, or are you going to handle that at all, right? It's great practice. It's a practice coaching moment. It's an opportunity to look and say, I made a few changes. How did that person respond, right? You may need to change tactics. You cannot row the boat for someone forever. This is another learning for me, right? If I have someone that's really struggling, I can come alongside them and I can give them technique. I can help them with the pace. And at some point in time, I need that person to row the boat because I can't come back to you constantly because I'm ignoring everyone else that reports to me, everyone else that's in my staff, right? The second thing that I want is to learn how to develop good employees. This one, to me, significantly harder. It is much tougher to give good, solid, actionable feedback to your all-stars. I got a ton of all-stars in my group right now. And it is a daily, constant grind to try and find the time to give the effort, because it's much easier to identify something that somebody did wrong versus looking through all the really, really great work they did and trying to find one or two nuggets of things to give them to be like, hey, you could have done this one slightly different. It would have been, really over the top great, right? That's a challenge for me. And often this whole idea of good to great, the other thing that I talk about a lot is what is urgent versus what is important, right? I get caught up in the urgency of today. I get caught up in the urgency of how's the rig doing? How's that casing going in the ground? How's that cement job? Did we get returns back, et cetera, versus the important of, okay, let me think about how that engineer handled this well, or how that engineer handled that presentation, and give them a few nuggets of information that they can take with them, right? Feedback. Leadership is about soft skills and empathy. I told you I struggle with this. It's knowing your people and it's knowing your peers. And it's not that I don't care. I do care. I really do. Again, it's urgent versus important, right? I'm just more comfortable as an engineer because if you ask somebody, hey, how was your weekend? They might actually tell you. That scares the hell out of me, right? We don't all have perfect lives. In fact, the more I think about this, the more you realize that everyone is going through something in their life. We do a rig onboarding, and one of the most important pieces that we do is around mental health. And the more we do it, the more comments we get on our comment card about how impactful that little hour segment on mental health was to each one of those people, right? It's something we don't talk about because, again, somebody might actually take you up on that conversation, right? But people don't care what you know until they know that you care, right? So I think that that's a very critical piece, and I'm working on it. I'm recovering, urgency bias. Leadership sets the standard. This is another one of my favorite kind of analogies. But if there's a candy bar wrapper on the floor, and I walk in the room and I walk past it, that sets a standard. If I walk in the room and I pick up that candy bar wrapper and I put it in my pocket or I throw it in the trash, that sets another standard, right? So as leaders, you want to set the standard. And the way I have this printed out in my office, I send it to all the rigs all the time. What you allow in your presence becomes a standard. I think that that's a critical statement, right? It's about the little things. The little things matter. I heard a lot of conversations about sports execution, whether it be football or baseball or whatever. Taking care of the little things matter because at some point in time, it's going to be the fourth quarter and you're going to go hard count. You're going to try and get the defense to jump, and it is critical that your offensive line doesn't jump first, right? Or in baseball, if you do the little things, your bunt coverage in the ninth inning when you really need that out is going to be flawless. That's exactly the same way we look at our drilling environment. You have to focus on the little things, and what you allow in your presence becomes the standard. Leadership is culture building. This is kind of the key piece here. It's hard work. It never ends. There's always disruptions. You have to challenge yourself. You have to understand that criticism is the price you pay for leadership. People are not going to understand the decisions you make always. They're not going to like the decisions you make always. One of the things that we talk about in our group is alignment and agreement are not the same. They don't have to be the same. It's fine. If you agree with me, that's great. But at the end of the day, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to stack hands, and we are going to be aligned when we come out of this meeting, okay? We really believe in our culture. We hire for our culture first and skills second. That's how important it is for us. How we work is important. I'm going to step through this real quick. This is a document that I send out to the rigs and engineers from time to time. It's really fun to go out on site and see one hanging in the company man's trailer or in a doghouse. But it's basically a list of 12 things. And I add to it and take from it from time to time. But it just kind of sets the stage for this is our culture. These are the expectations. Number one, we all own all the results. We win as a team, we lose as a team. Nobody's on an island, okay? Number two, we don't take shortcuts. The deficit only multiplies in the out years, right? Again, going back to that, do the small things right. We're hard on the process, easy on the people. People don't show up to work to do a bad job. That one is tougher from the field, to be quite honest, right? Because they didn't grow up with this kind of culture. If you did a bad job, you might have shown up to do a bad job. But we try to be hard on the process. Like, what could we have done differently to help that person succeed? We don't allow titles, roles, or location to stifle ideas. We welcome all input. We're integrators. We seek to make good bets. Good decisions don't always equal good outcomes, however they accumulate in time. I think that one's critical too, right? I mean, as an engineer, you are strapping a piece of material or a piece of metal onto the end of other metal, and you're running it in a really dark hole. You're looking at some squiggly lines to see if it was successful or not. You're coming back out and looking at what you got, right? You can't see any further down that hole than I can. But we seek to make good bets. We try to make good decisions, knowing that good outcomes don't always come from those good bets that we make. We pick each other up when we fail. Zero risk isn't going to take us anywhere we want to go. Good enough is the worst enemy of better. We have time to time struggle with this one, honestly, on small things, because good enough is, Good enough lets me sleep easy at night. Honestly, good enough is kind of lazy sometimes. We know that trying something and trying for better doesn't always work. We've already paid for any failures. We learn from them. We don't want to try and learn from it twice. We fail fast, okay? If we try something, it obviously isn't going well, move on, right? It's quick, it's easy. It doesn't place any blame on anyone. It allows us to try things again quicker. And we utilize all our resources. We phone a friend. We look as a strength instead of a weakness. We set the standard, going back to that previous conversation. We assume all problems start with us as leaders. It's the one thing that we control. That's a really tough one, to be quite honest. I'll tell you that up front. We remove cheap insurance. It's the most expensive thing we buy, okay? We lean into calculated risk, and we actually calculate it. We know it, we own it, okay? Cheap insurance is just lazy. It just is. Sometimes it makes sense, but if you're having a conversation about whether something is cheap insurance or not, that's the conversation we want to have. If it's just blanketed across a drilling fleet, that's cheap insurance, okay? We recognize our resources are not unlimited. We say no to things. We talk about offense and defense. We're chasing the, this is for people that aren't baseball fans, I apologize. I should have picked better choices in life, I guess. But we're chasing the perfect game. If it's the 8th inning and we beam somebody, then we're chasing the no-hitter. If it's the bottom of the 9th inning and we gave up a single, then we're chasing the shutout, right? Just because something doesn't work doesn't mean we start back over from the beginning of what does excellence look like and how do we go execute it. So that's the foundation. Then what I consider my job is I layer on these top 3 things really off of that foundation, which is my intention is to cultivate empowered teams through clearly defining priorities, establishing context, removing barriers like we discussed, having an open innovation environment where we can encourage others, share feedback, share things that work, share things that didn't, and make it an engaging place to work where we are competitive, right? We're a healthy competitive, not a toxic competitive, and there is definitely a difference. Just 3 things that I didn't know where else to put it in the slide deck, so I threw it on the bottom. The last one, you improve upon what you consistently measure and display. I think that we are all on board with that. It's not about having issues, it's about how you recover, or a different way of saying that is it's not about the hole you make, it's about the hole you keep. Those are like the things that we live by in my group. Call to action. So I briefly mentioned this early in my career. You know, I was involved with AADE, I was SPE, SPYP. You know, kids get older, you get busy with life, and you know, I'm back. I'm trying to get more involved. I appreciate the fact that all of you all are here. My encouragement is to get involved if you're not already involved, whether it's AADE, SP, SPYP, et cetera. There's a whole fleet of young engineers, just like the ones that are here tonight, that need us. They need the mentorship, they need the counseling, they need the example. All of the things that, you know, I think part of the reason it fell out was I was a young engineer. I looked up to the old guys that were giving me that mentorship. They were up here talking and doing these types of things. And then I look around, I'm like, where are all the old guys at? Oh, wait a minute, I am an old guy now, right? So here's my encouragement to you. I would like to see everyone in this room. I can't think of a single person I met tonight that I wouldn't like to have giving a presentation just like this, right? So get involved. Get involved where you can. If you can give a presentation, do it. If you can mentor a young engineer, do it. Just get involved. And I apologize that I haven't been more involved, but hopefully we'll now. Yeah, yeah. So hopefully no more presentations on leadership because that's tough. So, any questions, thoughts, comments, things you want to challenge, things you disagree with?
Will you share this presentation?
Absolutely, yes. No questions? Good thing the beers kicked in early. So James?
The difference in toxic competitiveness versus a positive competitiveness. How you try to foster that? What's your approach to differentiate the two?
So to me, if you are trying to get a competitive edge and not sharing with the group what you're doing, that becomes toxic, right? The way I reference to our engineers is the same way I did when I was an engineer. Number one, I want Devon to be the best drilling company out there. That is goal number one. Goal number two is I want my rigs to kick everybody else's rigs' ass, right? That's number two. As long as they stay in that order, I think you're healthy. If they flip, that's where it becomes unhealthy. That's it for us. You're a very knowledgeable drilling guy. You have any thoughts on that?
No, I think that's right.
Okay.
Keep the first things first.
Yeah. Thanks, James. Anybody else?
I love that you guys are taking mental health seriously. I think there's other operators that have really been focusing on that and stepping up. Is there anything that you can see from an organizational standpoint of AADE or SPE or anything like that we should be doing in order to support? We've lost lots of people over the last few years to suicide. So do you have any more? That's
a really good question. I mean, one of the things that we talk about in our rig onboarding is just the fact that not talking, and sorry for the ladies, it's specifically driven towards men, but one of the things that is killing men is the fact that men don't talk about it, right? Not to say that ladies always do, I don't want to cast that, but that is one of the key pieces of our presentation, is making it okay for the men. Granted, this is large, there's whatever, 6 men on a crew plus a rig manager. It's a room full of men. And one of the things that we really talk about in that is the fact that it's okay to talk about it, right? The fact that we aren't talking about it is killing men. So let's throw it out on the table, let's talk about it. There's a handful of resources that we have that we supply the guys with, but it's consistently, sorry, let me back up just a little bit. We send out a comment card at the we put it on the table at the beginning of the day, and we ask them, please give us feedback, because every time we do one of those, it changes based on what those comments are. So the one that they get, say, a week from now is not the same as the one that they got last year. And one of the top reoccurring themes on there is, I appreciate the fact that you talked about mental health. So I will touch base with you later, and maybe we'll talk through a few ideas. Yep.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really amazing. We had a long conference. So I just want to say, I love your leadership skills and your approach to all of it. I love to come work for you.
I love it. Go Pokes, right? Yeah, okay.
If I ever get the opportunity to interview for a position for an interview or something, what kind of attitude or skill set should you be bringing to the table to the interviews?
I love to see out of a young engineer. I like to see internships if you can get them. Work in the field if you can't get them. I think those are 2 critical pieces for college kids. What has your course load been? What did you like most about the course load? Like I said, I'm a mechanical guy from OSU, so I get a lot of OSU guys. There's guys that specialize in Texas A&M or OU or whatever. We've been through the course load, right? We know kind of, I would say, what of those courses translate well to the work that we do. So I'm listening for which one of those courses did you like? Does it match up with the ones that I feel like are a good applicable skill set for us? But yeah, if you can do internships or work in the field in the summertime, if it's not an internship, any of that's great. Yep.
You mentioned a lot of stuff was, you use the term plagiarized, but if you had a specific source that you or an author or something where you felt like a lot of this material came from, what would that be?
So I really like the Craig Groeschel Leadership Podcast. If you guys haven't listened to that, it's really good. A lot of the TED Talks are really phenomenal also. Learning from a lot of really good mentors through my career, I'd probably say is the most impactful. I like the Craig Groeschel podcast because I listen to it on my way to work, and it's fresh in my mind as soon as I walk in the door. Where I struggle, honestly, is with implementation, okay? If I listen to a TED Talk, they give me so much solid, good information that I'm like, that is the way to do it, and then I walk out my office, I'm like, what was that all about? I don't remember, right? It's the implementation piece, right? And that's part of the reason I think working around good mentors or good leaders, preferably, is easier because you see them put it into action, right? For me, I'm a visual learner. If I can see somebody doing that, it's more likely that I can translate it and do it in my world also. So, beer 30? Any others? Thank you. Greatly appreciate your time.